On today's show, we have breaking news. The Ottawa Senators just announced 5 minutes ago that they've agreed to terms on a contract extension with Linus Ullmark.
And if you think the vibes couldn't get any higher in Sens land, our SensCentral Citizen, Chris Crawford, is going to be climbing Mount Everest with the Sens in mind.
We'll get into all that and more on today's Locked On Sens.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Get your tickets to the Sens home opener. You can follow the show on social media. We're at SensCentral on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. You can find us free and available everywhere you get podcasts, including on YouTube. Today is Wednesday, October 9th, and Pilsy, it is a great day to be an Ottawa Senators fan.
Woo! I mean, Ross, I am buzzing right now. I can't believe this is the world we live in. Linus Ullmark with a 4-year extension signed, and I don't even know where to start. Like, my mind is racing at 1,000 miles a minute right here, so I'll let you drive the bus and I'll just bounce around.
Well, why don't we start with the details? It's a 4-year contract extension, $8.25 million per season. It's a total of $33 million, the highest total value the Senators have ever paid a goaltender, and they get the 2023 Vezina Trophy winner locked up. Now, he still has this year left on his current contract, so this will take him through the 5 years from right now. The Senators have their goalie, and of all the long-term bets they've made, this one feels different.
Oh, it feels so good, Ross. And I mean, there's just so much poetic justice going into this moment. I mean, the NHL regular season, yes, it started in Europe, but whatever, that was so long ago, it doesn't matter. The real NHL regular season started last night, and old Corpy got the start for the Boston Bruins, and Sens fans knew exactly how that was going to go. It played out the way we thought. And then for mere hours later, Sens fans get to watch our old goalie do what he does on a division rival, nonetheless. And then they sign Ullmark to a 4-year extension before he even plays a regular season game for the Ottawa Senators. I mean, Sens fans are loving this. You can't have any emotion other than joy, elation, excitement. I could go on.
So obviously we know of the 2 final seasons in Boston where he was the number 1 goalie in the National Hockey League in save percentage over the last 2 seasons. Nobody who's played a qualifiable amount of games has a save percentage better than Linus Ullmark's, which is at .927. But the skill goes well beyond that. I just want to remind people that in Buffalo, he was a .912 goaltender, which would be among the best in Senators history at that number. Linus Ullmark's played 247 NHL games, and he has a .918 save percentage, 6 years in Buffalo and 4 years in Boston. So 3 years in Boston, rather. So the Ottawa Senators get their guy locked up, and where I want to go with this is how it shows the organization has evolved in how they treat their players. We knew that this was a storyline to follow throughout the season, but the fact, and Steve Staios continuing to say, we want Ullmark to feel comfortable.
Yep.
He got to Ottawa in mid-August? He hasn't even been here for 2 months, and he's bought in. He's all in, as the Senators tweeted, into what we're building here. And coming from a winning culture, he knows what it feels like to be around those types of organizations in Boston. And I think that's a huge win for the organization that they've been able to get him to commit this quickly.
And Ross, it's got to be such a good feeling for the core players of this team that have already locked in their contracts. I'm talking about the Bradys, the Timmys, the Shabots, the Norrises, the Pathersons, all these guys, the Sandersons. Like, for these guys to have gone through years of goalie hell, having a new guy brought in every year and it doesn't work out, to now see they've got a Vezina winner locked in, and that's going to show so much more confidence for this team. New players coming in, they got to love seeing this. Like, this is just the type of move that shows that the Ottawa Senators aren't messing around and they truly are striving for best in class.
Everything you hear about Linus Ullmark, sure, he's a great goalie, but the leadership qualities that he brings, you hear Brady, you hear Travis Green, you hear Steve Staios, you even heard Michael Andlauer on TSN 1200. I love Linus Ullmark, is how he came off. So in the past, you'd be like, man, they're tipping their hand. What are we doing? We're going to get killed in negotiations. No, not this time. I think it's a fair deal. I don't think this is like, oh my God, the Senators stole Linus Ullmark. This is fair value for one of 5, 6. He's a top echelon goalie in the National Hockey League.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Honestly, Ross, if you brought this deal to an arbitrator, they would just say, sign the papers. This is a great deal for the team and the player. 4-year deal is great. I know my hot take, Ross, already hit. There we go. We did it. We nailed a hot take before the season even started. My hot take was he was going to sign a new extension by New Year's, and I said it was going to be a 5-year deal. Well, Ross, I'll take an extension signed before the season and 4 years. That works perfectly fine for me. And as promised, I didn't mess around. The second I saw that extension hit, I went to the Sens store and got my Ullmark jersey. It's going to be here in like 2 weeks, so I'm fired up about that.
Nice. White or black?
I went for the white because I want to rock my black Timmy. That's my iconic jersey with the original umlaut. And then if I want a white option for when we go on the road, I got my Ullmark jersey. This is my first ever Sens goalie jersey. So this is a beautiful moment in history, Ross. I'm so happy.
Please let us know in the comments your thoughts on this contract. And I just appreciate how this time they actually didn't negotiate through the media. Steve Staios was on TSN 1200. I think it was Steve Lloyd that asked him, hey, when is the right time to open up negotiations with Linus Ullmark? And he said, that's a good question. I don't really have an answer for you. When? We'll play it by ear. And then all of a sudden you wake up this morning and at about 9 a.m., Linus Ullmark, quick video. Senators go right into Stevie Staios' office where he chatted with us just a week and a half ago. And there's a piece of paper on the table with a pen. And that is the $33 million man right there. What are your expectations throughout the contract? This will take him until he's 36 years old.
My expectations, Ross, is much of the same of what we've already seen from Linus Ullmark. Like, I think you can lock in a 9-10 save percentage every year. And I would say that's probably a conservative number. Like 9-10 would be on the low end of what I think he can do. Save percentage, you're looking probably around 2.5, even that's probably conservative. And this is a guy that wants to show, like, I think coming to Ottawa was a big part for Ullmark because he's sick of having to fight in a tandem style crease. He's the guy. They're not going to have anyone that will play more games than Ullmark, that is a higher caliber, more talent. It's going to be, he's the number one starting goalie playing 50-plus games every year, and they're going to have a backup to pick up the back-to-back games and give him a break once in a while. Like, that's how that's going to lay out for the rest of his career. And some people, I saw some Sens fans saying, ooh, he's going to be into his mid-30s by the time this deal's going through. That's not a huge problem for goalies, especially a guy like Ullmark. I'm not concerned about having him in his mid-30s. I mean, you're going to get him through most of his early 30s. So this is the guy. Like, when we think back revisionist history, Ross, about all the goalies we were looking at, Markstrom was an option. I even forget some of the other options by this point, but it was kind of Markstrom and Ullmark were two big options. I'm so glad the Sens went the Ullmark route. It just provides so much more longevity. And I think the fit for Ullmark and the Sens was a match made in heaven.
The Ottawa Senators just tweeting out from their media account a quote from both the owner, Michael Andlauer, and Linus Ullmark himself. Andlauer saying, I have a lot of admiration for Linus. He's a great representative for the Ottawa Senators organization, both on and off the ice. Linus himself says, quote, I've reached the point in my career where I really want to put my family first. Since we've gotten here, everything has just felt natural. I hope this can help change things for the better, both for our organization and the city. What would you say to fans, maybe of other teams, because we're seeing some in the comments on Twitter at SensCentral saying, oh, he's not in Boston anymore. This might backfire. What would be your response to them?
Well, I mean, we've gone over this, but his numbers were very good in Buffalo. And
did you see his numbers against Buffalo this preseason when he got shelled for 29 shots in half the game?
Still really good. He got a full shots a game worth of shots in half a game, and he still thrived. And Ross, we had all the people, especially Bruins fans, I hope there's some listening to this, that were like, well, the Bruins have such a good defensive core, any goalie can play behind them. Well, we saw what happened to Corpy there. So, and the Senators defense is going to get better. Ever heard of Carter Yakimchuk? That's going to be a big boost. Jake Sanderson's getting better by the day, and I have so much faith in Steve Staios. The more time he has to put his mark on this team, I believe they will become a better defensive team. So I'm not worried, Ross. The only thing that would really cause a dent in my armor would be looking at his playoff stats. That would be the one thing that other fan bases could throw at me, and I'm like, ugh, that does make me a little nervous because his playoff stats are not good at all. But Ross, I'll let you hit the line.
Get me to the dance. Exactly. And I'll boogie.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like, the Senators haven't made the playoffs in 7 years. We're on episode, 1,138?
Yeah. Senators goalies have a 0 save percentage in the playoffs in the last 7 years.
But 0 goals against average, Ross.
True.
You kind of put yourself in a corner there. But
Linus Ullmark played 2.5 preseason games this fall, and I know it's preseason, but it's all we have to go on in front of the Senators decor. 930 save percentage, and made some huge saves at the end of a 1-goal game where it's just the confidence. He gives no rebounds. He tracks pucks, which the last guy couldn't do. And he plays the puck. He's like a third defenseman back there. I'm not expecting him to score a goal every season like he did 2 years ago. It would be cool.
Goal would be nice. Yeah.
But the way that he's going to help break the puck out of the zone is just going to create more offensive situations for the team.
And that might take some time to get used to, Ross. We saw Ullmark playing the puck led to Carter Yakimchuk having to kind of give it away in that one game, and that led to a goal. So that is going to...
The ref.
Yeah, the ref got in the way too. That is going to take time for the goalie and the defense core to figure out how that's all going to work, but they got 5 years to figure it out, so I'm not worried about that. Finally, before we kick into break, Ross, thank you to the Ottawa Senators for announcing this early enough. It would have been a classic tradition, me making the pilgrimage to Ottawa.
On your kayak.
On my kayak, yeah, I got my paddle and life jacket ready to go here. Once I hit Furnace Falls, I'll be hitting the river. But it was uncanny how often I would be in a 2-hour window where I have no cell service, taking back roads from the Blue Mountains to Ottawa, and a big extension would hit. That happened with Brady. It doesn't happen this time. I'm so thankful, Ross. I get to go through my whole drive thinking about Linus Ullmark having already signed that extension. What a way to boost the vibes even more for the home opener. Thank you, Steve Staios. Thank you, Linus Ullmark.
And unlike the excitement 3 seasons ago when Brady Tkachuk signed on the day of the home opener, he'll be in the lineup on Thursday, right? It's not a holdout, but it's not a restricted free agent situation. He's got this year and then 4 more beyond that. Again, let us know in the comments, and we will see you where the vibes will be free at the GCP tomorrow. We've made it, and there's still some spots on the 3rd bus. Now, space in the bar will be limited because we've got a ton of citizens coming on the bus. So get there early. We're going to be there around 2 p.m. and it's just going to be incredible. I'll leave it at that, Pilsy. Let's get to our SensCentral Citizen. This is a really, really cool conversation. I'm excited to have you all hear Chris Crawford's story. So let's get to that, and then I'll get your final thoughts afterwards. You're listening to Locked On Ullmark, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. Guys, Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. That makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff. It's going to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Gametime is the ticketing app you want to use if you want tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. If you hate when you get to checkout and the price is completely changed on you, all those added bills. Gametime has an all-in pricing feature. Make sure you turn this feature on so right off the top you can see what the final price is. No surprises. Speaking of no surprises, you get a view of your seat right on the app, so you can make sure the logo's facing the right way. You got a good view of the benches or the penalty box, whatever you like. Lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it?
Game time. All right, we now welcome on this week's SensCentral Citizen. We're heading back to the heart of enemy territory. Feels like we've been there a few times talking with citizens. Today, it's Chris Crawford. What's up, fella? Nice to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you guys. Good to see you at the draft a couple months ago.
What a time. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I want to start by saying you're not going to be in Toronto for too long. You're actually going on what I'll say is the trip of a lifetime this weekend. Let everyone know where you're going to be repping the Ottawa Senators.
So I'm headed to Nepal, flying to Kathmandu on Sunday to hike to Mount Everest base camp and climb what's known as a trekking peak called Lobuche East, just over 6,000 meters, 20,000 feet in elevation. So, as part of this journey to Kathmandu, I will be raising money for the Ottawa Senators Community Foundation for all the good work that they do in the community.
Love that. And we're going to post Chris's link, the GoFundMe link to the foundation. I've already put my donation in. Everybody else should do the same. Ross says he'll match, but he's muted, but I can tell you that for you.
I'll match.
Chris, so when did all of this start? Like, obviously, like if you're going to climb Mount Everest, you're probably not just getting up off the couch and being like, I'm going to go do this. Have you been training for this? Are you a mountaineer? Give us the story.
Yeah, so I've been interested in mountains for a while. Last year, I was actually in the Alps, doing what's known as part of what's known as the Tour de Mont Blanc. So it's a hiking trail around Mont Blanc, part of a G Adventures trip. Who I also met a fellow Sens fan on that trip, which was crazy. But it was we've been friends ever since we met on that trip. But so I've been interested in hiking and not mountaineering. This is going to be the first. It's the first introduction into mountaineering. So base camp is more of a hike, although it's very high. It's just under 18,000 feet.
Decent.
And then the trekking peak is more introduction into what's known as mountaineering. So there's actually a gym here in Toronto, which is one of the benefits of living in the city, is they have facilities like this where you can actually train at altitude. So getting my body ready for the lower oxygen levels at 17 to 20,000 feet.
So when you're climbing this peak from base camp, is this like a day trip, or is this something, because the one that scares me, not that I could do this at the best of times, but sleeping that high up and not in, I'm assuming a base camp, there's at least like tents and that sort of thing. Like, what's the situation going to be when you're going all the way as high as you will?
So most of the way up the mountain is what's known as tea houses. So they're basically mountain accommodations it's a building, it's a structure, but they're not insulated. So you'll be putting on multiple layers of clothing to sleeping bags and
pack a couple Sens jerseys.
Yeah, I have to buy a new one. Actually, my last one is the Brinket, which was not the
maybe a number 35 jersey on the way, Chris.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. After today's announcement. Yeah. But so that's the accommodations up there, and then there's only one night I'll actually be staying in a tent.
Okay.
So
one more than I could do.
And it's the high season right now, so it's there's lots of trekkers and other folks from around the world that are climbing and trekking to Mount Everest base camp as part of this time of year. So.
And when you say this is going to be something that represents the Ottawa Senators and their foundation, which is obviously a very important initiative, did we hear you're going to be rocking a Sens flag at the same time. So everyone up there is going to know you met someone in Mont Blanc that's a Sens fan. If you meet someone in Nepal at the top of a mountain, I mean, that might be the most by chance meeting of all time.
Yeah, I'm going to be, I got a flag that I'll be taking and I'll be raising on, it's known as the Everest rock. It says Mount Everest Base Camp on it, and then the elevation on it as well. So I'll have the Canadian flag and I'll have the Sens flag taken with me. So
that's so awesome. How long is this trip going to be up the base camp and up to the peak?
So I'm at 16 days, and I have a couple buffer days built in there just in case there are weather delays. So I fly back at the end of the month. So it seems like a long time, but it's doesn't feel like a long time.
Yeah, that's going to be an incredible journey. But we got to get into some Sens talk too. It's unless you have a couple more questions, Ross, because I'm buzzing on the Ottawa Senators today.
Oh, me too, man. No, and Chris, it's a great time to have another chat with Chris because we got to meet him at the draft, like you mentioned off the top. We had our little Sens Army parade from the Venetian all the way over to Sphere. So
not quite a mountain trek hike, Ross, going from the Venetian to the Sphere, but pretty close.
Those are the types I like to do, though. So what was like? Was it a no-brainer when you found out the draft was in Vegas that you had to be there? Tell us how you ended up on that trip.
So I was actually on that trip. So a buddy of mine, I think you guys met him, Billy, who has a hockey tabletop game that he's made. He was there as part of the creating promotion awareness for his game called Hockey Hardware. So that was part of the reason for the trip. But when it's in the Sphere, it's hard to say you can't go, right? So, and I've been to other drafts before as a member of the media covering for the Ottawa 67s. So I love the draft. So
yeah, it was an absolute blast. But let's take it back even further than this. How did you become an Ottawa Senators fan?
So I was actually thinking about this because I knew this question was you guys were gonna ask.
Good question, Bills.
Thanks.
Yeah. The earliest memory I have of becoming a Sens fan was probably early high school. So I'm 38, so that's going back a ways. So back in the glory days of when the Sens were in the playoffs all the time, but not really making it very far. So and all those devastating losses to the Maple Leafs in round 1 or 2, which were just heartbreakers. So so that's where I started. When they were winning the President's Trophy, but they weren't winning much else. So.
Yeah. Who are some of those first favorite Senators that helped you fall in love with the team back then?
My first jersey was Jason Spezza, and I played defenseman I played defense as a hockey player. So Wade Redden was one of my favorite on that team as well.
Hope you're enjoying our chat with Chris. We'll get right back to it. But first, Pilsy's got a word from our friends at FanDuel.
Yes, FanDuel is the official online sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, and it's America's #1 sportsbook. Why would you go anywhere else? When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. If you happen to have a hunch how a former goalie of your favorite team is going to do in their debut, why not make a little money off that? Go to FanDuel. Ross and I did that last night. Thank you, Corpy. And you can do the same if you're feeling the vibes for the Ottawa Senators. They have the odds up for the home opener already. We looked at them yesterday. Ross, I don't know if they've changed much today. Here they are. Nope, same. Sens money line plus 105. Over under at 6.5. That sounds like a solid time to me, and you can check it out on FanDuel. Go visit FanDuel, and you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com.
Pilsy, do you notice a trend between all the Toronto-based Sens fans and Jason Spezza being their first favorite player? Feels like it's a common thread.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was ripping up the OHL. I don't know if his OHL career had a hand in that. We had a couple people say that, but I mean, if you're starting to watch hockey, Jason Spezza was a very exciting player to watch. And if you didn't care too much about defensive play, Spezza was your guy.
Oh yeah, all offense. Hey, that's what it's all about, man. I keep saying that we're now seeing the next best talented player since Jason Spezza in Tim Stützle. What's your expectations for Timmy this year? Because that's been a hot button topic. Only 18 goals last year, under a point per game. You think that's a fluke, or should we be more measured in our expectations this year?
I'm actually pretty bullish about Timmy this year. I think he's going to crack the 100-point mark.
Ooh, okay, give me the spread. How many goals out of those 100 points?
He'll hit 40.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I like that too.
Yeah, he'll hit 40, and he'll be a lot better on the power play. That's what I'll say. Yeah.
Some are saying he might lead the team in power play goals. Some people are saying, those same people think that Linus Ullmark will sign an extension by New Year's. Oh, wait, that hit right away. What's your thought on the fit? Like, do you think this is an amazing contract? Obviously, we got our goalie, but are you all in on it? Or is there a part of you that's like, hey, we haven't even seen him play a game. We've signed Matt Murray, Eunice Corpusalo, both the long-term deals before they ever played a game with Ottawa, and look at them now.
Yeah, I think Linus is a little bit different. I was looking through his stats before we started the interview here, and even on Buffalo, which those Buffalo teams obviously weren't making the playoffs, he was still rocking a pretty over 900 save percentage for the most part. So I feel like we have a better defense core than some of those Buffalo teams did. So I feel like even if and one of my hot takes was he's going to have at least above a 9-10 save percentage. Which if you were to look at last year's stats, that probably would have make a difference of getting close to the playoffs or where we actually ended up. So
big time. Yeah. Now, were you someone that was concerned about Ullmark having the 1 year on your deal, or how did you feel before this all settled?
As I said before, my last jersey was Alex DeBrincat jersey. So I bought into the to the hype.
And he was an RFA, so he felt even more safer. Like, he's an RFA, they're gonna figure out a contract for him.
And then so this one I was a bit nervous, especially with the assets given up, but ultimately he was one of the best goalies available on the market. And kudos to Steve Staios for pulling that off the way he did. I think it was on game 7, right before the puck drop. Yep. So kudos to Steve Staios for putting that off. But yeah, no, I feel a little bit different just because of the pedigree that Linus brings, and the need for our goalie and for the Sens.
So how will that pedigree help the Ottawa Senators this year? What's your expectations for them as a team?
I feel, and I heard you guys' takes yesterday and some of the other citizens' takes yesterday, but I'm going to piggyback on some of them and say Sens will make the playoffs and face the Leafs in round 1 as a wild card team, and then beat them in round 1.
Okay, I was waiting for a result.
Yeah. And game 7.
Oh, man. In Toronto? I mean, you're going to be boots on the ground if that happens.
Yeah. Can't miss that game. Yeah.
Has to be there. Now, when you look at getting to the playoffs, what's the biggest, what are they going to be better at this year outside of goaltending? Because I think that's an obvious one, and we covered Linus Ullmark. There's no doubt a step up there. But what other area of the game do you want to see most improved versus last year?
Definitely special teams.
Yes.
Penalty kill needs to be a lot better. Power play, which I feel like based on the personnel that they have and being a year older, even some of the additions that they made, I feel like that power play will definitely be better. It's the penalty kill that I think is going to be the one that probably makes or breaks them getting in or not.
But you got Ullmark.
Yeah,
that's going to help a lot. But I'm also interested. That's the team factor. But which player is going to be the X Factor player for this team?
The X Factor.
Final one before the season.
True. No pressure.
No pressure. I would say Shane Pinto.
Okay.
Let's hear Shane Pinto.
because I feel like he's going to take a big step. Like he didn't have a full season last year. Just watching him play in the preseason and watching him play at the end of last year, the games that he did play, he's going to be good. And center depth is, as hockey analysts like to say, is king for teams. So I think having that center depth, having Josh Norris healthy, hopefully he can complete most of the games this year. I have it on one of my hot takes that he'll complete all 82.
Okay.
But and if he does, I feel like that's the other X factor. Like, Josh Norris and Shane Pinto being ready to rock and roll. I think that's going to be the key to also keep getting in or not.
Now, is this a no-brainer decision for you that those two are the centermen and Ridley Gregg moves to the wing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Josh Norris was taking draws in preseason and didn't seem to have any restrictions, so I feel like he's ready to go. And
follow-up question, though. Let's say both of them, Pinto and Norris, are healthy, like you're saying, like we're all hoping, obviously. Is there a possibility that Pinto elevates and gets to the second-line center even with Josh Norris healthy and you flip the two, or how do you feel about that?
That's a hard one. It's hard because based on contract, based on Norris's contract, and his pedigree of already scoring at the pace that he's known to score at, I feel like I would keep it the way Norris 2, Pinto 3.
Yeah. Okay.
So you think then my follow-up to the follow-up is who finishes with more average time on ice per game? Norris over Pinto?
Norris over Pinto just because of power play.
Okay. Yeah, fair. First unit versus second. And the power play. I mean, the personnel's there, right? Like, it shouldn't be as much of an issue as it was last season. So I'm with you there. Special teams, huge for this upcoming season. Now, Chris, which team are you eyeing above the Ottawa Senators? We know it's been a clear-cut top 4 in the division with Florida, Tampa, Toronto, and Boston. Who's on the way out? Or are 5 from the Atlantic going to make it and they slide in for a Metro team?
I feel like Tampa's going to miss this year.
Ooh, okay.
Just because the loss of Steven Stamkos and some of the pieces that they've had to move because of salary cap constraints. I feel like Tampa's definitely ripe for missing for the first time in a long time. But I feel like the other teams aren't really going anywhere. Toronto's not going anywhere. Boston, now they just got Swayman signed. As much as they didn't look good yesterday with Corpusalo, but I feel like Tampa's there for to miss this year, and Ottawa to take the spot. And I don't feel like Detroit or Buffalo are quite there yet.
They don't have a goalie, Chris. They don't have a goalie. Final question for me here is not really a question, actually, more of a request. Chris, we got to get a video and or pictures of you planting that Sens flag when you get to your pinnacle of your hike. So that's my only request, is we got to see all the evidence of that.
You actually just stole my final question.
Gotcha. I mean, it's a great question or great request.
Yeah, that's one of the pictures that'll be taken on top of that rock. So
absolutely. Okay, and wait, final request. Everyone watching this,
stealing all the questions.
Go check out Chris's GoFundMe page for the Sens Foundation.
Absolutely. And we're going to put that in the description in our bio. Chris, any final thoughts? Here's my final question, and it might even be better than Pilsy's. Probably not, but it might be. What's the Senators' record going to be when you get back? I don't need a game by game. Are they going to be above 500, at 500, or below?
Above 500.
Okay. All right. I like the confidence there. Yep. That's awesome. Chris Crawford going on the trip of a lifetime, and with the Senators Foundation in mind. We appreciate that so much, being in Ottawa and knowing the great work in the community that the Senators Foundation does. Again, we've got the link in our description. I'm matching Pilsy, and we'd love if everybody would get in to this great cause. And we appreciate you for climbing this mountain, because I'll tell you, neither of us could do it. So we're going to be rooting you on from afar, and we look forward to seeing all the pictures and videos when you get back, because I'm assuming there's probably not good service up there. Am I right?
There actually is pretty good service up until a certain point. So,
Okay, well, check in with us if you can. We'll have you
Yeah.
on through your phone. Okay, we'd love to have you at base camp. First time SensCentral goes to Everest base camp.
Yep.
yeah, we'll definitely be in touch for sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right, Pillsy. I'm still buzzing off of the news that Linus Ullmark 4 more years after this one at an AAV of 8.25. Now, looking at the goalie market, and you look at how apparently Igor Shesterkin turned down $11 million just recently, the top paying goalies right now after this season. So again, there's still room. Igor will sign his extension in New York or elsewhere. But if you go with the highest paid goalies right now, Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman are tied as the 5th highest paid goalies. Do you think that's a fair spot for him to be?
Oh, yeah. I think that's right where he should be.
Kind of 4. I mean, obviously, Carey Price, unfortunately, his career had to come to an end due to injuries, but Carey Price and Sergei Bobrovsky are the only 2 goalies who are making over $10 million on AAV. Price 10.5, Bobrovsky 10 flat, Andrei Vasilevsky at 9.5, and Connor Hellebuck at 8.5. And then it's actually a 3-way tie. Ilya Sorokin also making 8.25, Swayman 8.25, Ullmark 8.25 after this season. And then it goes all the way down to Gibson at 6.4. So like, there's a huge gap there between this top 6 tier and then the rest.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And Ross, I'm so relieved they got this contract done because it was an interesting time for the goalie market. You look at Swayman holding out the whole like debacle that happened in Boston. They're glad they settled that. So that's a monster deal at $8.25 million. And then days later, you get Shesterkin turning down a monster deal. And that kind of had me thinking, well, where does Ullmark land on this? Does he think that, and Jeremy Swayman kind of, or at least his camp kind of portrayed that he was doing this holdout, obviously for personal selfish reasons, but to also boost the goalie market in general. He didn't want to take a low ball offer because then that would affect other goalies' offers and just the market for goalies in general. So he gets what he wants. And then Shesterkin turns down an even better offer. So that had me worried. Does Ullmark think he's closer to Swayman's approach? Or is he thinking Shesterkin like, wait a second, the cap is going to go up huge. Getting a starting goaltender with a Vezina trophy on his resume, I'm gonna hang with Igor and I'm gonna wait for more money. But it worked out, and getting this done before the season starts, it is so refreshing for the Ottawa Senators.
So Pilsy's going to be taking the pilgrimage up to Ottawa today.
Yes.
I will be flying out about 6 p.m. tonight, and we will be boots on the ground both tomorrow in Ottawa, Saturday in Montreal, and tomorrow's episode. I love these, Pilsy. We haven't done it since Minnesota was the last time, or St. Paul, Twin Cities. Shout out. Great time there with Seth and everybody that made that trip awesome. But or no, the draft. Of course, we did live shows at the draft. The draft. How can we forget? We just saw Chris, and we were at the draft with Chris. But I love the live shows, and tomorrow we will be in Alta Vista at the Casa Levitan. Early episode drop. We're going to record it late tonight. We'll do the lineups and everything. Obviously, we're going to do X Factors today. My X Factor, Linus Ullmark. All right, how's that?
My X Factor, Steve Staios.
This guy is built different, man. Doesn't negotiate through the media, but gets things done. Steady Stevie Staios. Pilsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
I'm absolutely buzzing right now. Like, I feel like I could just like jump through the screen and just go nuts, which I'm gonna be jumping at the home opener. I'm very excited.
Bring your boat, Lake Levitan, coming to a theater near you.
Yeah, you're gonna need your floaties. Final thought for me. I was in the Zoom portion of the Belleville Senators season opening press conference. Congrats, stick taps from Pilsy to Peelsy. Our guy, Garrett Pilon, guest of the show. Check out our interview if you haven't already. Named the 6th captain in franchise history for the Belleville Senators. So huge honor for a well-deserved guy in Garrett Pilon.
I mean, he put the nail in the Marlies' coffin last year, right? He won the first playoff series win for the Belleville Sens. He gets the game-winning goal in the ultimate game. So very well deserved. I still think back to the moment where I was like, Pills, are you ready? Going into the interview,
and
both of you said yes. That was an all-time moment. We're going to make more moments throughout this season. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We will see you at the home opener. I've had some people being like, hey, I'll text you. We'll meet up. If you know me at a Sens home opener, I'm going to be everywhere and anywhere and never in one place at the same time.
Yeah, you'll probably hear or smell Ross before you see him.
Smell like what?
Spilt beer on the jersey, among other things.
Game day fits. All right, that's it for us today. Go Sens, go. Linus Ullmark resigns, and the vibes are high going into tomorrow, where, by the way, we'll get into it tomorrow. The Florida Panthers are an absolute problem, so we'll discuss that more. No, not today. Not today. Good vibes only today. We'll deal with the task at hand tomorrow. That's Brandon Piller. I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.